Why does your confidence make some people nervous? Not your attitude, not your voice, not even your decisions, but something deeper, something they can't quite name. Why does your silence carry more weight than someone else's shouting? Why do your boundaries shake the ground when you speak them out loud? Why does your mere presence feel like a mirror to some, exposing what they don't want to see? Here's the truth that many won't say out loud. People don't fear a woman because she's loud. They don't fear her because she's emotional. They don't even fear her because she's successful. They fear a woman who knows her worth. Because when she does, everything changes. You see, we live in a world that, for generations, told women to shrink, to apologize for taking up space, to smile when it hurts, to be agreeable even when something feels wrong, to be nice even when someone crosses the line, to question themselves before they question others. So when a woman walks into the room without asking for permission to exist, when she sits with her back straight, eyes forward, voice calm, when she listens more than she explains, when she knows she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, that is terrifying, not because she is dangerous, but because she is free. And freedom frightens people who live in chains. They don't fear your power because it hurts them. They fear it because it shows them what they don't have. It reminds them that they are still living in performance, still seeking validation, still hoping someone will give them permission to feel worthy. And here you are standing in full self-ownership without asking for approval. You want to know why that scares people? Because human psychology is built around patterns. We feel safest with what we understand. And society has trained people, especially men, to understand a woman who doubts herself. A woman who asks, "Am I good enough?" A woman who chases approval. A woman who breaks herself into smaller pieces to be more lovable. That's familiar. That's comfortable. That's controllable. But a woman who knows she is good enough, who doesn't chase, who won't beg, who says no without guilt. She breaks the script. She disrupts the pattern. She's no longer playing the role written for her. And now, people are forced to confront their own roles too. That's not just uncomfortable. That's unsettling. It shakes the very core of someone who has been taught that power only exists in dominance, not presence. It forces reflection. It demands self-awareness. And those are things many avoid their whole lives. But let's get honest here. This fear people feel around your worth isn't really about you. It's about them. It's about the walls they built to protect their fragile sense of self. Walls that crack when someone like you walks by, because your light shines too brightly on what they've tried to hide in the dark. And yet, here you are, still shining, still walking, still choosing not to dim your brilliance, just to make others feel more secure in their shadows. You are not too much. You were just never meant to be less. Some will try to call your strength arrogance. Some will say your standards are unrealistic. Some will say you're hard to love. But what they're really saying is this: I don't know how to love someone who doesn't need me to feel whole. And that's not your burden to carry. Here's something powerful that many don't realize. When you truly know your worth, your energy changes. You walk differently. You speak with clarity. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving yourself. You stop accepting crumbs and calling it love. And people can feel that, even before you say a word. It's in the way you pause before answering. It's in the way you leave the room when your spirit isn't being honored. It's in the way you protect your peace like it's gold, because it is. That's power. Real power. Not the kind that dominates, the kind that leads, that inspires, that awakens. Now listen closely, and carry this with you. There are people who will misunderstand you. There are people who will feel threatened. There are people who will walk away, not because you did anything wrong, but because they are not ready for someone like you. Let them go. Their exit is not rejection, it's protection. You're not losing anything. You're just making space for what actually matches your value. Because a woman who knows her worth doesn't beg to be chosen. She chooses herself first, and from that wholeness everything changes. The people you attract, the conversations you have, the respect you command, the life you live. But here's the reward, the one I promised you. If you stay until the end of this message, if you listen not just with your ears, but with your soul, you will walk away with more than just words. You will walk away with confirmation. That the fire you've been carrying inside you was never too wild, that your voice was never too loud, that your standards were never too high, that your worth was never something to hide. You will walk away remembering the truth you already knew deep down. You are powerful. You are whole. You are enough. And the world doesn't fear your strength. It fears that you'll finally realize just how strong you've always been. So stay with this. There's more, much more. Because this is only the beginning. It doesn't start with words. It doesn't start with actions. It starts with something quieter, deeper, more sacred. It starts with knowing deep inside your bones that you are enough, not because someone said so, but because you decided to believe it. That's what self-worth really is. It's not loud. It's not boastful. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't seek permission. It sits still, but its presence is undeniable. It doesn't chase, but it commands attention. It doesn't shout, but it silences the noise around it. A woman who knows her worth doesn't have to announce it. She doesn't need to argue. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her value. She simply is, and that being speaks louder than anything she could say. There's something about her energy that changes the temperature of every room she enters. People feel it before they even realize it. Because her self-worth doesn't come from performance. It comes from truth. She isn't trying to impress. She isn't trying to win approval. She isn't trying to be liked. She's just being herself, fully, unapologetically, deeply. And that is magnetic. But here's what many don't understand. That kind of self-worth isn't given. It's not inherited. It's not something someone hands you and they say, "You're enough." It's something built, brick by brick, in silence, in solitude, in the moments no one sees, when you decide to stop abandoning yourself for the comfort of others. It's built in the quiet hours when you choose to walk away from things that don't honor you, even when you're lonely. It's built when you say no and mean it even when your voice shakes. It's built when you stop explaining your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It's built every time you choose you, not because it's easy, but because it's right. That's the silent power of self-worth. It's not reactive. It's grounded. It doesn't flinch when it's questioned. It doesn't collapse when it's tested, because it wasn't built on shallow foundations. It was built in fire. It was built in the aftermath of betrayal, in the lessons of heartbreak, in the quiet decision to rise, again and again, even after being told you're too much or not enough. That's why it's powerful, and that's why it's feared, because the world knows how to interact with a woman who doubts herself. She's moldable. She's easy to manipulate. She's hungry for validation. She says yes when she wants to say no. She bends to be chosen. She doubts her instincts. She apologizes for her truth. That's familiar. That's manageable. But a woman who doesn't doubt herself, she becomes unpredictable, uncontrollable, untouchable. Not because she builds walls, but because she lives in truth. And truth has a way of shaking the lies people tell themselves. Her self-worth becomes a mirror. It reflects the parts others are afraid to face. When you know your worth, you no longer entertain conversations that diminish you. You stop responding to half-love. You stop staying where you're tolerated. You stop giving your time to people who only love the version of you that's easy to consume. You start walking in your wholeness, not your wounds. And something shifts, drastically. Suddenly, you're no longer anxious about being left. You know that anyone who walks away is making room for something better. You're no longer performing for love. You're attracting it in its purest form because you're living from your essence, not your fear. That energy, that centered, grounded, unshakable energy is powerful, not in a way that seeks to dominate, but in a way that liberates. You're no longer owned by the opinions of others. You're no longer addicted to praise. You're no longer waiting to be picked. You already picked yourself. And that terrifies people who are still living for approval. Because when they see you walking freely, they feel their own chains. Chains they've grown comfortable wearing. Chains of insecurity. Chains of people-pleasing. Chains of what will they think of me? Your freedom exposes their prison. And this is why they'll call you intimidating. They'll say you're too independent. They'll say she doesn't need anyone. They'll twist your strength into isolation, not realizing that needing no one doesn't mean rejecting love. It means not settling for less than you deserve. It means that your love is a gift, not a need. It means your presence is offered, not begged for. It means your energy is sacred and you protect it like it's your life, because it is. You begin to understand that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. Not everyone is equipped to meet the version of you that's no longer hiding, shrinking, or apologizing. And when you understand this, when you deeply accept it, your entire life begins to shift. You attract different people. You speak differently. You move with purpose. You stop trying to fix people to feel worthy. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. You stop mistaking emotional unavailability for mystery. You stop mistaking attention for affection. Because now you see clearly, you feel clearly, you love clearly, and most importantly, you choose clearly. This is the silent power of self-worth. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you allow. It changes how you respond. It changes what you attract. And without you saying a single word, it teaches people how to treat you. Some will rise to meet that energy, some will run. But either way, you win, because you're no longer available for anything that doesn't match the truth of who you are. That truth doesn't need explanation. It doesn't need defense. It just is. It lives in the way you carry yourself. In the way you don't flinch when someone questions your choices. In the way you honor your intuition. In the way you say, I deserve more, and mean it. You become a force, not because you're trying to be one, but because you're finally aligned with your value. And no one can take that from you. Not rejection, not abandonment, not criticism, not silence, because your worth no longer lives outside of you. It lives within, unshaken, unmoved, unbothered. And in a world that profits off your insecurity, a woman rooted in self-worth is a quiet rebellion. She cannot be sold self-doubt. She cannot be manipulated through fear. She cannot be tamed by systems that ask her to be small. She is free. And that kind of freedom, that kind of unshakable, soul deep freedom, will always be misunderstood by those who haven't found it yet. But that's not your concern. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're not here to dilute yourself so others feel safe. You're here to live fully, to love deeply, to walk boldly, to shine relentlessly. Because the world doesn't need more agreeable women. It needs more women who are anchored in who they are. Women who aren't afraid to take up space. Women who know that softness and strength are not opposites. They are power when combined. Women who love without losing themselves. Women who lead without needing a spotlight. Women who speak even when their voice shakes. And most of all, women who don't just talk about worth, but embody it. That's you. Not someday, not when you fix yourself. Not when someone finally chooses you. Now, right now. Because self-worth is not a destination. It's a decision. You decide right here that you are worthy of love, respect, peace, and joy. And from that decision, everything begins to shift. So walk in that power. Let your silence speak. Let your standards speak. Let your presence speak. You don't need to raise your voice to make an impact. You only need to stand in your truth. Because the most dangerous woman in the world is the one who has nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to lose, except the parts of her that were never hers to carry.